Welcome to INCAP, or International Cultural Arts Program, where we learn about different cultures, holidays, and people through the most iconic, influential, and creative people in their industry. My name is Amber Mackenzie, and today we are going to be meeting and interviewing Blair Warner.
Oh, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Oh, wonderful.
All right, so let's just get started. So my first question is, how did you start performing?
So I started performing about 25 years ago. I did when I was in college, I did radio, and then I did a lot of script writing for people. So what, obviously comedic script writing. And that's what I thought. I thought I was going to be a writer. And so I would do a lot of that, for other comics or people. I would just, write jokes, write storylines for them. And then once I got out of college, I had a professor tell me, he said, "Oh, you have all these great ideas. You should go to Saturday Night Live." And I said, "Oh, great. How do you do that?" He goes, "I don't know, but I know you have to do stand-up." So I said, "Okay, I wasn't planning to do stand-up. Let me try it." And so I tried it. And again, this is a while ago. And first time actually went really well. But the second time, I forgot to show up. So I ended up taking a hiatus, which led me back to corporate America. And then I restarted about 3 years ago. Basically, because of the changes in the life, I said, you know what, this is something I wanted to do. This is something I have a background in. I still know people in the industry. Let me give it a shot.
How old were you when you started writing jokes or performing or just started writing?
So high school is when I started. That was my outlet. I was not academically inclined at all. So, typical, always making jokes in class, getting in trouble. And then the one outlet, yes, exactly. And we had a lot of them in my school. And so it was very competitive because we had all these people who were very sarcastic, would always joke around. And I would always perform at like variety shows. And that was always my outlet. But the difference then was I didn't have anything written. So initially I just used to perform and it would just be whatever came off the top of my head. And it wasn't until I got into college, like as an outlet, that I started writing more. So not until I was about 18, 19, that I started writing some.
So what inspired you, or how did you know that you wanted to be a professional comedian?
Well, I always knew I wanted to be a performer. I just didn't know comedy was going to be the route. And to be fair, part of the reason why I never wanted to do stand-up was the traveling. I wanted to have a family. I said, I couldn't endure all the traveling. You're spending half your time on the road. I said, I don't know if I could do that lifestyle. And that's why I wanted to do more of the comedic writing. And it was once I started to learn that, I didn't always like to be behind the scenes. That's where I started gravitating. Like it's about when I was 22, 23, I said, you know what, I'm going to start writing and I want to do stand-up now. And it's one of those things, once you do it once, it can be either very addictive or it's like very heartbreaking. But it's something that's very addictive for some reason because, yeah, once you do it once, you get one laugh or one cheer, you're always fighting for that again.
How do you prepare for a show?
So I usually write. I have, gosh, upwards of about 400 pages of written material. And I usually the week before, I might perform several times within a week. And the week before, I'll kind of come up, all right, this is what I want to do as a set list that keeps getting tweaked. And I'm kind of changing or putting jokes in and out because you're trying to get a feel of what works and what's going to resonate with people. So it's a constant tweaking, even up to like a minute before on stage. I'm writing stuff on my hand, something that came up in mind. So it's that frantic of trying to get that perfection that you never reach.
When choosing where you did want to live as a comedian, why did you choose New York City?
By accident. I'm Central Jersey located, and you go one of two options. You can go to New York City or you can go to Philadelphia. And I was starting in Central Jersey, and I just started gravitating more and more to Northeast Jersey by the New York City border because there was more opportunities. And then the next thing I know, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing all New York. I'm traveling, up to the city all the time. And actually just recently I said, you know what, I want to go back to Philadelphia because it's two different cultures. It's a different level of comedy. There's a different expectation. And so I've tried out, obviously going, throughout the different states, different places, but I really like Philadelphia.
So next question is, who is a comedian who inspires you?
He's old and he wasn't alive when I was around, but it was Lenny Bruce. Actually, Marvelous Miss Maisel was a show on Amazon, and it did 3 seasons, and it was about like a female comic back in the 40s and 50s, and he, his character appears in that. That actually started my interest or piqued my interest in him. And then, of course, thanks to YouTube, I was able to find more information about him. And I liked his style, where he sort of challenged, mainstream. It made you question things. And he did it in a sense, not to kind of stir up controversy, but to create dialogue, to make awareness first and then create dialogue, which I think was great. I mean, unfortunately, it was sort of missed by a lot of the mainstream audience, but just the way he went about it, I thought was like very clever. I don't know if I would agree with some of the stuff he did, but it was just very, it was a different way of doing it. It was, so my comedy was sort of along those lines to begin with. So I really enjoyed watching it and kind of, he's probably one of the comics that I most, emulate.
If you could do a show with any comedian or artist, who would it be and why?
Actually, well, if it was artists, I love the band Rancid, which is a punk band actually from San Francisco up north. Mainly because, and they've been around for a while, they sang a lot of songs about unity. And it was sort of what I like. It was taking a subculture and people's preconceived notions of this subculture. You see these people with tattoos and these mohawks, you're scared of them, but really down to earth people, and just, they love everyone and, embrace everyone. So, musicians that are still alive, that would be one. Comedians, it's tough to say. I liked Rodney Dangerfield, and he's not my style of comedy at all, another old comic, but he had great one-liners. And writing one-line jokes is like one of the most difficult things to do. It's so challenging because within comedy, there's different styles, and all comics are trying to figure out, okay, whose style do you work with? Who do you mirror? And doing those one-liners, I could never do that. And especially he had a whole portfolio of them, and he was part of like old Hollywood too. So, go on Johnny Carson show and just kind of go on and, rattle off 30 jokes, go on 6 months later, another 30 jokes, and everyone would be laughing. And it was just really, it was really, really great to watch. So he would be one. I know what'll happen is I think I did well, and then he comes on, and then I'll just like, oh my gosh, he killed it. I didn't do that well. And, so the comics, sort of have that ego too. But yeah, I would just love to see him live. Is the best thing. And for a comic, one of the best things you can do is admit when something doesn't work. And, don't try to cover it up. Just admit and just acknowledge it and kind of accept, like, yeah, you know what? I failed on that one. Because the audience responds so much better than you trying to cover up and then, try to make it to the next joke. It's just going back and going to the audience like a real life situation and say, you know what? That's where I wanted to go with that joke. It should have gone here, and I really butchered that, and I really messed it up. It goes over so much better, and it becomes a little bit more endearing for the audience.
All right. What would be a dream venue for you to perform at? Anywhere in the world?
Anywhere in the world? Budokan in Japan would be one, just because it's. See, I watch a lot of YouTube now. With the whole pandemic, there was you can only watch so many movies and so much television. Then it's like, okay, what's left? And then I'm just going to go to YouTube and binge watch different things. And I like the band Cheap Trick because I love the charisma that they had on stage, and the way that they took the energy from that crowd. And it's it's an arena, but it's a small arena, and the acoustics are great, and just it worked, that dynamic. And it was like probably one of their best selling albums. Well, it wasn't their best selling albums, but one of their more popular starting albums. So Budokan would be one. And then the other place, and I mean, I performed there in the past, would be the Stress Factory in New Brunswick, which is a small comedy club. And because I grew up in New Jersey and I grew up in New Brunswick, so it's one of those things where, you know, I hometown boy, you know, it's my hometown club. You know, that will always be sort of my favorite place. I mean, there's other clubs I kind of, you know, do residencies at, but Stress Factory, it's a small place, but I love the place.
Have you ever gotten training as a comedian?
No, I
Oh,
wish. Well, it's very difficult to train as a comedian because there's so many, like I said, there's so many different styles, and to write a joke. And, you know, I was explaining to this, it's very much like writing satire. Um, it's a fine art, and it's very difficult for people to explain why something is funny and the components. And people have different aspects. Like, you know, we have what we call like the cheap jokes that, you know, like these will get laughs, but there's really no depth to them. And then there are the more complicated jokes where you're like, I'm not sure if the audience will completely understand this. You know, how do I make it or word it so that they would? You know, what reference points do I have to give them to help them have that baseline so they understand that? But yeah, I wish there was more training in that. One thing they started to do, and the pandemic really pushed this, was there were these kind of communities that are popped up because a lot of the comedy clubs were closed. A lot of people put on their own shows. So there's been information that's been written about how to start up your own little community group of comedians.
ever consider writing a book with all of the knowledge that you have obtained over the years?
Yes, I, I probably would with both my career, you know, personal life, and then, you know, with my health, because I've been extremely lucky. I've been one of those people that is sort of annoying. I just got very lucky and was able to fall into certain things. So, you know, I would want to kind of, you know, write about, you know, those experiences, and then more on the back end of my life, you know, with, you know, sort of what happened medically, and then, you know, kind of my philosophy change of what I was going to do professionally.
All right, and speaking about your background and your health, how long have you had epilepsy?
So I just developed epilepsy about 7 years ago. So it was something that was brand new to me. And it was something that I had no previous knowledge of. And what's even more embarrassing is that I worked in drug development, and I would work on clinical trials for epilepsy, for seizure management. And I had no idea what epilepsy meant because I was more of the business numbers guys. I wasn't too focused on the science. So I had zero knowledge of this. And then, like I said, this came about 7 years ago, and it was sort of like, you know, it changed my whole life. You know, it was a complete 180. You know, I was sitting on a couch, you know, watching, actually, I can remember I was watching the World Cup. And then the next thing I know, I woke up in a hospital bed. And, you know, I was like, you know, why am I here? What's going on? And, you know, they tried to explain to me, they're like, oh, you had a seizure. You know, and I've heard of seizures before, and I just didn't understand what was going on. And they said, oh, we're just going to put you on some medication. And, you know, most people, it works. And then it just, you know, progressively, you know, didn't work, and obviously got worse with more medications that I took. So it was quite interesting.
Are your seizures under well control right now?
No. So I still have my seizures. So I have refractory epilepsy. So my seizures are not controlled by meds. You know, it gets closer. So my seizures have decreased significantly, but like my most recent one was about 3 weeks ago. So, you know, there's some distance apart, but yeah, it's still one of those things that's always, you know, kind of in the back of my mind that could always happen at any time. So, which also makes it interesting as well.
Does stress impact your seizures more?
Yeah, that was one thing that, you know, may not have been the origins of it, but definitely a driver of it was stress. You know, when I did develop it, I was working, you know, corporate America. And the other thing that I kind of came to the conclusion of, people who tend to gravitate to the arts, don't necessarily, do well in a corporate environment that's very structured, and, you do A, then B, then C, and they always have the challenges. And about 2 years before, I developed it, I remember my wife at the time, I turned to her and said, I think my brain's going to go out. I'm like, I think there's something wrong with my brain. My brain's going to go out. And then, the seizures came about, and the stress of, family and work, I think it was just overwhelming. I had done it for 15 years, and it just took a toll on my body. The one thing I did want to mention, and this is where this platform is amazing, is that there are stigmas with, certain mental health and certain other conditions that people have, outside of mental health. And it becomes a challenge. So as an epileptic, I've met now 5 epileptic comics. 3 of them do not have it controlled by meds, and none of them like to talk about it. They would acknowledge, because I do a lot of jokes about it, they would acknowledge when I come off stage that they would have it. They would not want to talk about it thereafter. They don't mention it on stage, and it's like closed. I finally found one comic who was willing to talk about it. And so that's a little frustrating for me, because I want to make create awareness for this and show that, you can overcome your own personal obstacles. But it's very disappointing when, people that have those conditions, they're too scared to say anything. There's like that fear of, people aware, like, what are going to think of me? Are they going to judge me? Are they going to book me on their shows? Are they going to be concerned that I can't show up to a show? And so it's very sad that they have this fear, and they have to, keep it hidden. When obviously it's a big part of their life. So it's unfortunate, but, platforms like this is great to just generate awareness, to say, here are different people, they have different circumstances. This is where they come from. These are their experiences, learn from them, like across the board, not even with medical conditions, like you said, with different holidays, becoming aware of like the different cultural aspects. So, you can appreciate them, and at least, have respect for them, and, treat them, like they're equals.
Yeah. If you had one piece of advice that you could give an aspiring performer, what would it be?
Not to care, number one. And number two, know why you're doing it. So if you have any aspirations of becoming famous and making money, probably not going to make it, because that's not going to be that's not the best driver in any industry, I believe. So it's knowing why you're doing it, and then having the passion behind it. Another thing is, don't look at your peers and what they're doing, and try to compare yourself. There's a lot of envy, and it's very quick to become envious of someone else. And you fall into a trap when you do. Everyone has their own, issues that they're dealing with, in some respect. Some of it, like I said, could be mental health. Some of it, like myself, could be, I'm trying to make awareness, for my condition, and trying to improve my overall mental health through this. It becomes challenging. It becomes challenging more so with the understanding. A lot of folks don't understand the condition, and it scares a lot of people, those who do, which, I think that sometimes becomes a hindrance with that level of diversity, because you have your pockets, you have the people that have some kind of condition, something, disability. They sort of kind of gravitate together because they understand, what it's like you have a struggle. It's a little bit harder for you. So, you tend to gravitate into like little groups, even though they may not have the same type of condition as you. It's that, I understand you have these struggles to overcome. So it's very helpful. So it's that, know why you're doing it, and confident why you're doing it, but then also being supportive of others. So don't compare yourself to other people, because everyone has their own situation. But when you see someone else succeed or doing shows, be grateful, because it's like, wow, that person's getting an opportunity. So I might not be able to get the shot, but that person may be able to get the shot. And that's pretty cool, if you know someone or you see someone developing and getting to that opportunity.
Thank you so much for doing this, Blair. It was a pleasure talking to you. And thank you all for watching and listening to Blair's inspiring story. Just as a reminder, November is Epilepsy Awareness Month, so if you do find it in your heart to donate to raise money for epilepsy monitors, please do so at www.performerswithpurposefoundation.com. Thank you so much again, and I really hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Amber. Bye-bye.